So, Jimmy, who is this? The most racist man in all of anime? That's actually correct, Jimmy. You usually never get these right. Let's see if you can get this one. Who is this, Jimmy? I got it. That's a Reze victim and a death battle merchant. That's 2 for 2, Jimmy. You're on a roll. Even if you get this next one wrong, you still pass. Final question. Who is this, Jimmy? That's easy. The protagonist of JoJo's, one of the greatest animated series of all time. Did you say animated? Jimmy, what have you done? Where's SPR, Netflix? Jimmy, you need to run right now. I'll hold him off. If I don't make it, tell Chloe Bailey I love her. Where's SPR? Where's SPR? Where's SPR? Where's SPR? Where's SPR? Anime agenda will never die. There is nothing more beautiful than watching a show, comprehending it perfectly, connecting with its themes. Also, you can ignore them in favor of making slander edits comparing a traumatized child to Benito Mussolini. But today we're going to be covering some of the most insane agendas across all of anime and grading them based on how valid they are. We have a grading scale going from A+ for no fraudulence here, all the way to F for fraud. Got it? Now with that being said, let's start with Zoro. Do y'all know that back in the day I used to think ZKK stood for Zoro Klux Klan instead of Zoro Kills Kaido?
I beg your pardon?
I'm dead serious. Back in high school, I'd always see stuff about ZKK on my timeline and how crazy ZKK fans were in connection with Zoro. As someone who hadn't watched One Piece at the time but knew about the Zoro racism allegations, I kind of figured that people were just calling Zoro fans crossburners. It wasn't until maybe a year later that I finally figured out ZKK wasn't about Zoro fans being locked in with David Duke. But besides my ignorance, that should show you just how bad Zoro's general reputation is regarding race. Still, when I decided to finally sit down and watch One Piece, I figured that it couldn't be that bad. Fans have a tendency to exaggerate things for the joke. And 5 trillion episodes, a couple dozen manga chapters, and a live action series later, I can confidently say that it was in fact that bad. The coincidences genuinely started to get uncanny. When he fought that Michael Jackson looking dude in the East Blue, I didn't really think too much of it. But as time went on, things started to become pretty clear. Eustace did a much better breakdown in his vid, so I'll just sum it up like this. Here's a Zoro opponent. Now here's another. And another. And another. And another. So after seeing that, I'm gonna ask you, do you notice something that they all happen to have in common? I'll give you a hint. It's not their hair color. Not their eye color either. It's that each and every one of them are niggas.
You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
But hey, it could always be a coincidence. He just happens to fight a lot of black people. It happens, we got hands after all. Doesn't mean he's trying to make the Grand Line great again or anything. But then I started thinking about a little incident he had with King. King, for those who don't know, is one of Kaido's commanders who Zoro fought, and he starts out their fight wearing a mask and suit that covers his whole body. A black mask and bodysuit, by the way, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. He's doing pretty well at first too, and he even manages to knock Zoro down. But then, Zoro proceeds to give us the quote that finally broke my faith. Without knowing what he is, I don't think I can win.
What do you mean by that?
There's not even room for interpretation here. Zoro figuring out King's race, and the fact that he didn't pass the brown paper bag test, was essential to him winning that fight. From then on, I started looking deeper and it all fit together. Zoro got rid of the only black sword he had the second he had a chance. Zoro's fought and brutalized multiple African animals. Zoro's main rival is a dude named Blackleg Sanji. He even supposedly spent the timeskip quote-unquote hunting monkeys. Yeah right buddy, that's the same euphemism cops used to use in apartheid Zimbabwe. Speaking of cops, Oda confirmed that if Zoro had a job besides being a pirate, he'd be a police officer. But the one thing worse than being a racist is being a racist fraud. I was watching the anime at the time, but the manga fight between Zoro and Lucci had to be some of the most humiliating shit I've ever seen. Apart from being a Republican, Zoro gets a lot of flack because of how much his fans glaze him. Besides stuff like theorizing Zoro would kill Kaido, his fans like to argue that he's as strong as or stronger than Luffy. If you don't believe me, look up Zoro equals 6 admirals. So when it came time to fight Lucci, a guy who Luffy just decimated, it should have been easy claps, right? Right? Nope. Zoro spent months getting stalled by Lucci, just huffing and puffing. People were making jokes about him needing 3 inhaler style, that he wasn't getting his minority hunter skill activated, but of course, the worst of them was this image right here. Lend me some hockey, Odin. This is base Lucci we're up against. This meme right here is more popular than most anime. I think it came out in 2023 and it's still going to this day. Of course, Zoro eventually did beat Lucci, but by then it was way too late. Agendas are perpetual motion machines. They never stop once they get going. Zoro is a really interesting character, has a rabid fanbase, and gets carried hard by Toei Animation, but he's also the greatest enemy of the NAACP and a base Lucci victim. He goes in B tier. But Zoro agenda is mostly just jokes. This next one very much got personal. Slander is inescapable for MHA fans. As I've talked about before, it seems like no matter what they do, people are bound to clown them. And of course, the interesting nature of the fandom hasn't done much to help matters out.
I made it instead of cheese. I used Todoroki semen.
But traumatizing TikToks aside, 2025 was looking up for My Hero fans. After the series had ended, it looked as if people were taking off their hater glasses and finally realizing all the good MHA did for the new gen. In some way, somehow, Deku had turned some of the funniest slander of the year into becoming the god of the streets. Things were going great, but little did they know that a war was on the horizon. Now, Bakugo has always been a controversial figure within the fandom. Whether it be him bullying and threatening Deku, people wondering whether he deserves redemption, or people threatening to unalive the author because he didn't make out with Midoriya. Side note, I don't even know why that's such a big thing. These niggas will never be Naruto and Sasuke. But all that controversy came to the forefront when he got pitted against his fellow bomber in Reze from Chainsaw Man. In late 2025, after the Chainsaw Man movie dropped, people on power scaling Twitter wondered who was stronger between Bakugo and Reze. It made sense. They are both explosion-based characters who, at a glance, were within the same tier of strength. Should be a heated but friendly debate, right? Well, if you know anything about power scaling, or anything about Twitter, you had to know that wasn't the case. Things got so toxic that it led to the Great Slander War of 25. It was an arms race for the ages, but instead of weapons, the main vehicle for damage was fan art. And oh my goodness, we got some fan art. Of course, Reze was the victim for some of it, but 99.9% of it was just focused on clowning Bakugo. There is no joke I can make that could possibly do justice to the sheer ass whoopery this nigga went through. A combination of 50% of people hating Bakugo, 50% of them hating MHA, and another 40% of people being Chainsaw Man glazers meant that 140% of people had some reason to shit on Bakugo. Wait, that doesn't seem right. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know what I was thinking. It meant 141 2/3% of people had some reason to shit on Bakugo. Meanwhile, Reze had just had an amazing movie dropped about her, Chainsaw Man was super popular, and she happened to be one of the rarest creatures in all of shonen, a well-written female character. The thing is, it went a little far. Slander art was one thing, but people started making full-on gore of Bakugo for months on end, alongside other stuff I can't even discuss without getting demonetized. There were a lot of people who already hated Bakugo, and they just needed any excuse they could to just let him have it. And this war continued for months, even as the discourse died around the matchup. That was until Bakugo vs. Reze's death battle got announced. While there was some argument, most people were treating it like a public execution. They were already writing eulogies for Bakugo before the research even started. And then, Bakugo won. And when Death Battle went over the reasoning why, it actually made sense. Bakugo was stronger, faster, more durable, and they proved it. He'd done it. After months of slander, Bakugo finally proved himself on the grandest stage of them all. So did he get all the glaze that Reze did? Did his slander campaign start against the Bomb Devil? Did he finally beat the allegations? And the answer to that is... kinda? In the end, no one really cared. Even the people who were trying to start slandering Bakugo for winning didn't get anywhere. They tried to do a rehash of Bring Me More Street Tears, but it just wasn't the same.
Joe, stop it! You will never be Troy!
Bakugo finally did manage to beat Reze in a death battle, and he was able to lock in as a character towards the end of his series, but he also spent 90% of his time as a character in a humiliation ritual, and no one cared about the one dub he finally got. He goes in C tier. But while a war between anime fan bases is one thing, a war between a fan base and a producer is another. Ladies, gentlemen, and those beyond the binary, it's time to dive into the madness of Steel Ball Run and their war against Netflix. Did y'all know I used to be a JoJo LARPer back in the day? Now before you get too mad, this was in middle school. All my friends who liked anime were into JoJo's and making JoJo references, so I pretended I was too, even though I didn't know a JoJo stand from a hot dog stand. But I decided to give it a chance eventually and checked out Golden Wind at a friend's house, and I was absolutely hooked. From then on, I binged everything JoJo's. The anime, the fighting game, even the terrible ass OVA, which I actually ended up watching first somehow. Heck, I even read Stone Ocean because David Production was taking too long. But I held off on reading Steel Ball Run. Everyone promised me it was one of, if not the best parts, so I figured I'd stay patient and wait for it to get animated. After all, how long could it take? That shit took 8 years, my nigga. I was in 6th grade when I watched part 5, and the first episode of part 7 came out at the end of my sophomore year of college. But it's cool. It's cool. At least it finally came out. And Netflix even blessed us with a 40-minute episode in time for my spring break. Episode 1 of SBR was out, and with the weekly release schedule... Whisper. That's wrong? My bad. And with the bi-weekly release schedule... Whisper. That's also wrong. Okay, got it. These are 40-minute episodes after all. These take time. And with the monthly release schedule... Whisper. That's also wrong. Okay then, so what the fuck is the release schedule? And there's the problem. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, one of the biggest anime ever, a series that has been running for 4 decades, didn't even have the decency of an anime release schedule. And Netflix was as silent about it as a mime wearing a ball gag. But after the shit they pulled with Stone Ocean, I don't even know why I expected better. But for weeks on end, we didn't have any information to go off of. And the result was that JoJo fans started to crack. Now, it's no secret that JoJo's has one of the most active, loyal, and slightly disturbed fan bases out there. But the weeks of no information after waiting years on end for such a hype part created a powder keg that made them go insane. Every single comment section on every single video for weeks on end was filled with queries of where's SBR? Where's SBR? Where's SBR? Whether that was on Netflix page, other anime pages, or even cooking channels. And of course, it was always paired with this image right here. A portmanteau of King Von and Johnny Joestar that I would bet money you've seen more times than your own family these past few weeks. But as more and more time passed with nothing resembling news and things escalated even further, the trend shifted. With no more rage left to give, JoJo fans shifted to the last stage of grief, acceptance. All of a sudden, instead of Vonnie Joestar over here, we had this instead. And the comments started being stuff like, "It's okay, Netflix. Take your time. I'm sure the show will be so much better for all the effort you put in." Literally sunshine and roses. And luckily, Netflix finally gave us a release date for the rest of the episodes after a couple days of this. Is it way too late in the year? Yes it is. Is it still extraordinarily stupid that we had to go through this? Yes it is. But can we learn a positive lesson through this situation about the virtues of patience and faith? No, we can't, my nigga. Make that shit good, Netflix, or I will come to your headquarters and... Netflix finally did give us a release date, but literally everything else from their terrible release schedule to their lack of communication is absolutely unforgivable. They're going to get an F grade for the day. Never mind, I forgot they released 7 Deadly Sins. They go below special hell. So all in all, Zoro passes with a pretty high B grade, Bakugo barely makes it through with a D, and Netflix ends up in its own tier only above Benjamin Netanyahu himself. And if you want to see how the rest of these characters ended up on my tier list, then check out these videos here. I love all you beautiful people, and I'll see you next Thursday.